least I hope it is. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Ben Mills. I'm the Assistant Director for TRIO Student Support Services. You want to make sure you're in the right place. We're actually looking today at your study skills. This is the first of a series of workshops. If you have not yet signed in, the sheets are going around. Basically, it says STEM here on this one, so if you're like nursing or health solutions, you're a STEM TRIO student. And if you're in Cronkite or criminology, criminal justice, non-STEM, you're on the SSS sign-in sheet. So if you need to edit that, that's okay, but I'm going to pass this back. I'm going to start with the individuals that just showed up. Give you all a chance. Do not make sure you sign in before you leave. At the end of the presentation today, I have some handouts. However, everything will be in the PowerPoint too, so if you prefer it that way, that can be sent to you. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, but if at the end you want a physical copy, or you feel you need one to follow along right now, you're welcome to come up and grab any of the copies that we have here. But today we're going to be going over a few different tips, writing the paper, making the speeches, and succeeding in class. That's what we're going to be covering today. The thing to know is anything that's covered today that you want more information on, you can always set up time with one of our TRIO tutors or our TRIO coaches to go over in a little bit more detail in case you want to enhance your skills or if you didn't get all your questions answered in today's presentation. So I can step back a little bit here. They give me a clicker, so I'm just going to use this here. So we're going to start by talking about succeeding in class. So the very first thing here I want to check on is how many people in this class, in this room, are freshmen? All right. Do we have any sophomores, juniors, or seniors? Okay.
Wait, sophomore.
Sophomore. All right.
Sorry.
Oh, you might be able to put some tips out there when it starts talking about classes, unless some of you have taken some college classes before coming here to ASU. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to be present. So that's not just like coming to class, right? But it's coming to class ready to learn. So that means that you've done your homework, you've come prepared. You just haven't like glanced at the book and never opened it. You want to open the book, you want to read over your syllabus, you want to highlight items in your syllabus. You want to take careful notes. And you want to make sure that after you take your notes in your class that you're coming back to them to revisit them to make sure that you're adding in things you didn't get during your lecture. You're putting your page numbers in there. You're putting items that you need to reference, such as study groups or sessions with your teaching assistant. So the best thing to do there is to make sure that if you're not present in a class, that you get a connection with one of your peers so that you have someone's email, someone's phone number, a way to get a hold of another classmate. I usually say it's best to get 2 to 3 people in class, because then the chances of you all being absent on the same day is usually pretty unlikely, but that way you can reach out to someone. One thing you should know that's not on here, but I'm going to plug right now, is if you're an okay note taker, meaning that if another person looked at your notes, they could actually read them, even if they have the best handwriting, because my handwriting is pretty poor, but you can read it. It just looks like a first grader was writing. I know a lot of people now type, they don't write as much, so it makes it even easier. But if you're good at note taking, meaning you follow along with the lecture and people can read your notes, you could actually connect with our Disability Resource Center upstairs right above us, and you could get paid a stipend each semester for the number of units of classes that you're taking that they need note takers in. So if you're in an English class and you need a note taker, that could be a class they can pay you for your notes. If you're in your one-on-one class for your major and you need a note taker, that could be it. So you can get paid for one class up to maybe all 5 classes that you're taking, and they usually pay you then each semester financially, and they actually cut you a check. Or they'll write you a letter of accommodation saying this is how many hours of community service you do by taking notes for another person in the class. And all they ask is that you turn in those notes to their website every single day by the end of the day, so that you don't get more than 24 hours behind. So that's another great way to challenge yourself to make sure your notes are focused and that they are specific to what you're learning in class. That will allow you to be better for your quizzes and your tests. So how many people in here know by a show of hands how you actually activate your long-term memory? Do you all feel you have a pretty decent long-term memory? Show of hands. How many people feel they have a better short-term memory, remembering stuff within the hour or the day? Okay, all right. That was me pretty much in high school. I could remember stuff pretty easily for the test the next day or the quiz, because I could just kind of memorize it. I had a really pretty good photographic memory. But when it came to doing stuff like math or physics or sciences, you needed more of a long-term memory capability. And the way you want to do that is by activating your long-term memory, right? So you want to look at your 3 learning stuff. Your visual, your auditory, your kinesthetic. And the way we activate all 3 of those is by, does anyone know?
Taking notes, practicing, doing something.
Yes, there's a word for that. Well, there's a few words for it, but you're right. By taking notes, by practicing, basically by teaching someone else, by activating your study groups, group learning, going to tutoring, where you're actually sharing something back to that person mentoring you, or you're mentoring your peers, that's where you're activating your long-term memory. So when you're more engaged in a study group, and you're not just doing it by yourself, you're more likely to keep that information for the long term, which will allow you to be better prepared for your quizzes and exams, especially when you have things such as test anxiety. So, how many people know for every hour of class you're in, how many hours of homework are professors usually allowed to assign you? If you're in class for 1 hour, how many hours of homework should you be given? What's that? Someone. I just want to say like 2. Pretty good. 2 to 3 hours. For every hour you're in class, you're assigned 2 to 3 hours of homework. That could mean that you're actually doing problem sets. It could mean that you're doing research. It could mean that you're reading. It could mean you're reading in a study group. But that's basically it. So if you have just one 3-unit class, multiply that by 3. So you have 9 hours of potential homework that week, the next week, the following week. So that's really the math we're looking at when it comes down to how we need to balance out our time, right? So that's what comes out of doing your homework. It's not just looking at it, but it's saying the office hours, the study groups, and allowing yourself for each 3-unit class possibility of 9 hours of homework each week. That's why we say if you're taking 12 to 15 units, you're a full-time student, because you're going to have to add on those additional hours, right? So you're looking at somewhere from 50 to 40 hours you're adding on there for homework each week. That's why you might have to put books like free time on your schedule, but really needs to be used a little bit more constructively. Any questions so far? Okay, so some of the tips here, and like I said, at the end of this, we can email the PowerPoint sheet, but sometimes it helps to write the things out that are here, or if you need to, there's a right way, taking one of these handy out flyers that will list these in there, that you can highlight, you can go back to. Also, you can go back and see our tutoring coaches, and they can really help sharpen some of these things. But when you're coming into college, you're really adapting your learning style. So that could be different than high school, depending on how rigorous your high school is. You're going to be moving a lot faster. A course that's titled something as simple as maybe college algebra or calculus usually moves a lot faster than your high school, depending on who your high school teacher was. So that means you're going to be doing homework at a more rapid time. You're going to be in more chapters per test. So that's going to involve you really learning what it means to understand those concepts. What was always told to me was, imagine that you were teaching the class, or that you were the teaching assistant. How would you deliver that week's chapter, that week's lesson? What would be the key points? And in most of the textbooks, those are highlighted in bold, and have the study guide at the end. If you start with a study guide at the end, and you focus and you read that through first, you can then go back and really understand how to properly read the chapter, so you don't have to read everything word for word. You can actually go to the bolded points. And some of you may have had that before, but it really does help when you get 5 or 6 chapters you have to get done in a week. How do you get through all those? You want to go to the study guide then and really look at those bolded points. So that's going to adapt to different classes as well as the teaching styles. Sometimes you get lucky, you get a teacher that fits your learning style, whether you're more of a listener, a visual person, or some of you I see out there playing with your pens a little bit or other objects, a little bit more of a kinesthetic learner, which means you want things that are more tactile. And that's really good. You should have something with you in class that keeps you going, whether it's one of those spinners or something else that won't be too distracting to others, but will allow you to adapt if your professor is very monotone, and let's say they have no PowerPoint up, or no slides or no videos, and that's how you learn best. You have to adapt to that. And you also have to look for supplemental material that will help you enhance that learning. And a lot of professors will list a bunch of extra readings where you don't necessarily have to buy the books, but you can look at the articles online, or they'll actually link to a bunch of videos that you can watch that might express the point better for you. That's usually when I teach, I try to make sure that not only do I have this, but I also have supplemental material that might help different learning styles, so I can be more inclusive, saying you might get what you need today from me, but you might also get it from those extra videos, those readings in a better way, depending on how you learn. So don't be afraid to look at those other books on the list, those other videos that your teacher's giving to you. Come to prepare for class, whether you're using a laptop, you're using a smart device, a tablet of some sort, you're using a recorder or a pen, or you're actually using an old book, and you're using highlighters and colored pencils, figure out what works for you. Sometimes switching things up and moving around a little bit at your desk or typing can help you enhance the way that you're taking your notes or the way you're paying attention in class. And if there's people in the back of the room, are usually not always as focused. Sometimes you're in the back where you are, but a lot of times you go back there and look, sometimes people will be on their laptops doing other things, or their phones or whatever. You're paying, or your scholarship's paying for you to be here, so really try to be the people that sit in what I call the T-zone. So if we were sitting in a movie theater right now, you have all the seats facing the screen, you have the seats right down the aisle and the seats in the front row, that makes the shape of a T. Sit in those aisle seats or in that front row to challenge yourself to stay awake, as well as when the professor walks around, he or she will be able to talk to you, recognize you a little bit more, so when you come to office hours, they'll know you more likely than the people that are far back who are zoned out, but they're not really spending the time to care about. But in college, they're caring about the people who are actively engaged. So be actively engaged. and participate, ask questions. So that's a good way to stay alert here. How many people, by show of hands, ask at least one question a week in their class? I got a few people. I know it's freshman year, so maybe you don't want to completely put yourself in an uncomfortable position, but I think as you get through the semester into next semester, I would challenge you each week to ask a question. Say, Professor so-and-so, my name, give me your first name. I have this question, or I have this comment. Or you know what, I watched that video that was an extra assignment just to kind of get a point, and I really thought that was great. Maybe more people should do it. I know it sounds like, maybe you're becoming like that person in high school, like the teacher's pet or whatnot, but that's very important in college, to get to know your teacher. Maybe not to the point that you're seeing them every single day and hanging out with them, but the point that you're going to office hours, you need to know them a little bit. When you're there in those office hours, ask them some questions, get to know them a little bit better, so that they'll remember you when it comes to that A or B, or that B or C. They might give you that next grade if they know you and they're best a little bit more in you, like we are a trio. All right. Other things to do is that when you want to be in a study group of some sort, or you're in a group project, don't be that person who just waits the very last minute to be called upon. Step up a little bit. You don't have to be the lead in every group project, but you want to show the other members that you're in there that you have something to offer. Because as you get into your junior and senior year, people aren't going to want to be in a group with you unless you bring something to the table. And they're going to look for other people that bring something to the table. If you want to grad school, you just can't survive unless you're coming to those meetings with stuff already developed. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but if you're going to a study group and you're only answering questions 1 and 2, and there's 15 questions, they're going to be like, we already got class 1 and 2. Why don't you come in with questions 7 and 8 answered? Meaning you may not know how to do it because it's later in the assignment, it's going to be more difficult. But you taking the time before the study group to go to your professor, get the answers, and bring it to the group. Then you're of value to your group, okay? Being respectful kind of goes without saying, but the thing is sometimes people neglect that level of respect, meaning they're not corresponding with emails or messages that are coming from their other group members or their professors. If someone's reaching out to you, take the time to reach back out, and if you think it's been more than a day and you've heard from someone, maybe send an email. Maybe it got lost. Maybe yours didn't go through. Don't just wait in college. Those emails back up your participation. So stay involved, call, respond, answer yes or no, give them a response if you can't make a certain study time or things like that. Other people's time matters too. It's not just about yours. And in class it goes too. You don't want to be a distraction class. You want to be someone that contributes, right? Because teachers will pick out people that distract. Unlike in high school, you might have to stay there all the time. And take responsibilities for your grades. That means taking the time to ask professors what's going on. If you ever need an excuse to ask your professor about your grade, we have a really nice academic progress report form in TRIO, official and everything on letterhead. You can take over and say, I have to do this in order to stay in the TRIO program. We would like to have it, but that will actually open the door to some more conversations, and they can call us and we can back that up. But that would be a great way to meet your professor and say, after my first set of assignments, I need a grade check. So you can do that as often as you need. We have a form for that, so you can just come and see me or any of the other staff to get that form. Questions so far? All right, being healthy takes a lot of different ways, but we want to make sure you're not getting burnt out. Show of hands, how many of you have been to Sun Devil Fitness or counseling services this last month? Excellent. Does anyone have a program that they went to that they really want to highlight? Did anyone attend anything that was fun that they thought others should go to? Anyone go to Rock the Rec? Know what that is? And a social environment during the first week, or there's one where you would chill by the pool. So they had some of those. There's also some great stress management groups offered through counseling services. These are all some good things to check out. So if you don't go, check one out. If you have, then share what your experience was like with a friend, or maybe you just went to the rec to work out, or to swim, or to do yoga or something like that. I encourage you doing that because the more active you keep your body, the healthier your mind will be when it comes to the stress of all your homework. Setting goals is important too. A lot of the sessions that you'll have with me, if you're one of my STEM students right now, to bring on STEM coordinators, is about goal setting. If by any chance any of you end up on academic probation, that means a 2.5 GPA or below, we're constantly doing goal setting. And what I recommend to students is a process called SMART goals. If you haven't used it before, it really helps you measure specific goals. So it's not just like, I want to get an A in my exam. It's the steps you're going to take all throughout the semester, the schedule you're going to set to get that A, what it looks like, what tutoring, study groups, office hours, projects you're going to do, when they're going to be completed. That way it pushes you to set those goals. Writing something down is the first step. It's a really good one. But setting timelines for that after that really help you as you see throughout your syllabus. There might be 5 assignments due one day depending on how many classes you have. How do you get that all accomplished? How do you plan far enough ahead for that? Oh, sorry. And getting help when you need it. So making sure that you're taking the time to meet your professors. How many of you have met your professors already? or your teaching assistants? It's pretty good. There's a few of you that haven't yet, so going with that grade report, or at least a list of about 3 questions could help. You go in, you introduce yourself, you say your major in your hometown, and you say what you're studying and why you're studying it. Then you ask your professor the same thing. Where did you go to school? Oh, why did you study that? Oh, where are you from? And you might even throw in like, do you have a hobby? Believe it or not, professors are humans too, and that will actually put them in a place where they may be a little bit more inclined to work with you more regularly or remember you in class and call upon you. Making speeches. Anyone here have a fear of making speeches? All right, okay. How many of you have interviewed for a job or had to deliver a lecture in class? Okay. What do they always tell you about making speeches? What makes it the easiest? What's the tip? Practice? Other tips? What if you're like really nervous about it? Yeah.
Find somewhere in the room to focus on, and then just give your speech.
Yeah, camera. Yeah, but find somewhere, practice. There's that old saying, managing the whole crowd in their underwear. That doesn't always work. I mean, yeah, it gives that kind of like, nervous laugh. You're like, oh, okay. But really, some of the other ones do help. I mean, if that works for you, imagine crowd in underwear, use it. But practicing and focusing someone that really can really help you, also it doesn't hurt to know someone in the group that you can trust to kind of look at from time to time that focusing point, right? So, the art of making speeches does involve the basics, right? We do want to be able to write what we have to say. And when in college would we make a speech? Are there certain times you can already think of when you're going to have to make a speech this semester? What's that? PowerPoints, okay. Other times? Are any of you doing clubs or organizations, running for maybe all council, student government, pitching to your family, more funding for college maybe? Or to a scholarship board? Anyone interviewing for a job anytime soon? Internship? Okay, these are all times we're going to have to speak. And the really nice thing about TRIO is in addition to working with career services and professional development, we all do mock interviews. And those mock interviews are not just for jobs, but they're there to make sure that you sell yourself the whole time you're in college. You're looking for that future career. You're selling yourself to professors so they know that you're a dynamic student, that they're going to want to offer research experience to you if you need it. You're selling yourself to professors and staff if you're looking for a job on campus or an internship. And to those people that you meet afterwards, whether they be alumni from ASU, from some of our mixers, or people that you meet during your internship. So you're really carrying forth your best script. How many of you have a social media account? Or more than one? Okay. So in there, you're also selling yourself. Is anyone using like LinkedIn or another type of resume development program? You know what LinkedIn is? It's LinkedIn. Okay. So the idea is whether you're using that or another program, it's really a website that in addition to the typical social media, which is more for like friendships and networking, it carries your resume, it carries your cover letter, it carries your volunteer experiences. If you haven't done one yet, it's a good thing to set up while you're in college and update at the end of each semester, because that will sell you when you're asleep. When you're not around, this computer is actually taking the time to take your image just like they do on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere else, right? And use it to help connect you to a bunch of other people around the world. And as soon as you start doing that, taking control of it and shaping it, the better that will be. And that's part of, too, being able to write your own speech. You want to know what your story is, whether you're using it to do a presentation in class, whether you're using it to write an essay for a scholarship. You want to be able to sell yourself in the best possible image. And you're going to go through college and hopefully take a lot of opportunities. How many people out there are pre-med or pre-health, pharmacy, physical therapy, law school? You know, like our downtown majors that you're going to do in your graduate programs, right? You're going to need to be able to not only get a great letter of recommendation from someone, but you're going to be interviewed probably at some point for one of those programs, or you're going to need to be able to sell yourself for a scholarship to be in there, or a graduate assistantship. Well, taking the time right now to stay organized and put down your accomplishments really may make that difference. We will work with you through our tutors and coaches, as well as myself. I do this a lot. I work with people's papers to make sure they have a strong beginning and ending. You want to be able to, in your first paragraph, really sell yourself, as well as in your last paragraph, pull strong, because that might be all a committee reads. I've served national scholarship committees, as well as local scholarship committees. I've worked with the med schools on some of their mock interviews to go into like the U.S. College of Medicine. So there's a lot of experiences, as well as my previous institution, I worked with their business school to get students into their upper division classes. So really those interviews can matter, and the more practice you get, the better you'll become, right? So the idea is coming into TRIO or career services and setting up those mock interviews, allowing the time to work with your friends, all right, and your classmates. So I'm going to pause for a minute. I'm going to ask that you introduce yourself to the person next to you. I want you to tell them your name, your hometown, your major, and something that you would like to do during college, something that's on your bucket list of accomplishments. So I'm going to pause the next 2 minutes, turn to someone next to you, whether you're in 2s or 3s, and introduce yourself if you don't know them, or reintroduce yourself if they're a friend, and share those things, all right?
Hi, I'm Patty.
I guess you're right. Do you want me to pass these out now? I lived here for a while, but so do you like on a bad day? Like I like the traffic, like missing so it's not that bad. It's just like it's at least 100 miles away. I was gonna do that.
Yeah. I mean, you're still getting money to see it.
Yeah.
All right. So please wrap up any last minute conversations, we'll bring it back to the front. So I'd like to ask for a volunteer to look at my sharing what they learned from their partners, like the partner sort of thing, and what they're planning to do other bucket lists. Who feels comfortable sharing? Like 1 or 2 volunteers. And I have some prizes, my mission bag of prizes here that you get for sharing. All right, there, and I'm going to the back. So right there, and then back.
My partner's name was Ruby,
Okay.
and Ruby's from Chandler,
All right.
and so she has to commute every day from Chandler to Arizona, ASU,
Wow.
and it's quite the commute, so she's been struggling with that, and she doesn't know if she wants to come back.
Oh, I can understand that. Makes sense. All right. And do you want to introduce your partner?
So her name's Maddie. She's a journalism major, and one of the things on her bucket list, if she has a chance, she wants to study abroad.
Oh, anyone in particular?
We didn't get that far,
Oh, okay. What do you
but
have?
probably like, I don't know, whatever life is.
Okay, well, that's a great one.
You're up, you're up.
You're up? All right, we'll take it. So you each want to pick something from your prize bag. All right, and I have 2 volunteers in back. Oh, and we have one there. We'll take you and then you, and then we'll move to the next question. So go ahead.
Okay, so this is Brooklyn. She's from Surprise. She's a nursing major, and what else was there? What, her bucket list?
Yeah.
She wants to study abroad too.
Oh, cool. Do you know where?
I have like family in Spain, so that'd be kind of cool to go to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Spain's a gorgeous area.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to introduce your partner?
This is Haley. She's from Mesa. She's a nursing major too, and her bucket list is she wants to start with.
Okay, any kind of club?
I don't know yet.
Okay, well, that's a pretty cool thing.
Something.
No, you can look.
Are you holding it back to me?
I guess I like this flag. This flag's pretty cool.
Okay. All right, my last 2 here, then we'll move to the next part. So if you don't mind introducing your partners.
This is Karina. She's a nursing major. She commutes from Gilbert.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, this is Chantel. She's a nursing major as well, and she commutes from Gilbert.
Did you know each other before today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. Willing to share, that's the first step, I think, in really mastering public speaking and getting down your, what we like to call, your elevator speech. Thank you. Thank you to all my volunteers. We'll get another opportunity a little bit later in the workshop to get some more prizes. So, the term your elevator speech, has anyone heard that before? So usually when you're in an elevator, you take up the trio from the first floor, about how long is that ride? How much? Yeah, 15, 20 seconds. Sometimes an elevator speech is that short. Maybe it's a little bit longer if we have more than 2 floors, 3 floors in this building, kind of the basement. But you basically are about 15 to 30 seconds. If you were to meet your dream employer in the elevator and you knew because of something they were wearing or you'd seen them speaking that earlier that day, and you had that 15 to 30 seconds to sell yourself to them for a future dream job, what would you say? That's what we mean by an elevator speech. Right? So right now you kind of gave your elevator speech to just introduce yourself, right? To say, like, this is me, and here's a little bit something about me, my bucket list. That's the first step, right? We want to make sure that you perfect that, you grow that into a speech that you can deliver, whether you run into the dean or you have students here, you run into like President Michael Crow, and they ask you something about what's going on for you. It's your chance to possibly say, this is me, and this is what I'm looking for, because that's really what we're looking to do, is to help you. Not just know you, that's step one, but what can we do to help you? So if you met President Crow, President Crow said, you know, what's your name and what's one thing I can do to help you here at ASU? What would you say? So that's the idea, right? You want to be able to perfect that so that as you get comfortable, you use that dream job, you're able to deliver that. One thing that I've seen a lot though is when people do this, they don't always feel comfortable. So the more practice you can get, the better you find your placement. For me, I'm someone that talks with my hands, but I try not to do too much fidgeting with my hands to distract from the audience. Sometimes I'm better than others. But for me, my second language is American Sign Language. So a lot of that is using this part of my body and my hands to deliver another language. So that's why I do that. But for other people, sometimes they can get very fidgety, but you want to do something that doesn't distract too much. So maybe it's that you keep your hand in your pockets the whole time. That may not be as acceptable when you're meeting someone, but maybe when you're trying to really sell yourself, right? So find a good place to put your hands as well as your gaze. And usually if you're talking to someone, somewhere near their face, right? It might be a little bit past their face, a little bit down. But that way you can kind of get down to the basics so that your nerves don't take over, all right? I'm sure there's some other tips out there, but we can work on those if you come to the office. Those are just some initial starters for you. All right, the next thing you want to do is it does really help to use note cards or a similar type of program that might be through your software, right? So that you can actually lay out what you're saying. So before today, it was this whole entire speech. I don't want to read everything that's on the screen, and maybe you've noticed I haven't done a lot of looking at the screen because it comes down to practicing, right? And knowing the points you want to deliver and how long you want to talk. For example, for this, at each slide. That comes from practicing. Whether I'm practicing this exact speech or I practiced through a similar speech I've delivered and maybe I've enhanced for today to have a focus with 3 certain areas. So you want to know that, and you also want to make sure that when you're doing this, that you know what you're trying to highlight, right? What you're trying to get at, and how, a lot of times with class or work, how you're selling people on it, how you're making that connection, how you're taking time to connect with the people that are out there, how you're taking the moment to really get their feedback so that you can get their buy-in, right? But that's the way that you're going to work better with your study groups, your professors, getting that job. The more that people feel vested in you and that they have a connection to you, the more likely they are to work with you. So that's where this type of practice goes. Sometimes you have to speak a little bit quicker, but you want to make sure that when you speak quickly, you still speak clearly enough that people can hear your ideas. And a lot of times less is more. I know that this isn't necessarily less is more right there, but it gives you a chance to review it a little bit later if you look at the PowerPoint. But the idea of practice will slow down your speech, will allow you to take a little bit less off of what you're trying to get out there, really focus in on telling your story. By connecting who you are to what you're studying, you're going to do a far better job. That's been part of, when I went to school, I did my graduate work, it was all focusing on that, looking at people's unique culture, who they are, and how they can bring that into school, because so many times in school, we don't always pause to connect to the individual. If you can find a way to be proud of what you are and what brought you up and got you to this point, and relate it to what you're studying, sometimes it might seem like a far stretch, but things aren't really. If you take the time to get to know yourself, your family, your close friends, you will find deeper cultural connections to what you're doing and the reason for doing it. And as you go through that will help you determine if the major you're in is right for you, and if it's something you want to do later in the future, or if you see other ways you connect. For me, I didn't see when I went to school a major that made sense. I tried a lot of different majors out. And ultimately, I did find a major that worked, but I also decided to create a thematic minor, which is something you all can do when you do it for your major or your minor, if you so choose to at some point. You might stick with your career, but you might find a minor like that where you create one when you get a few different areas you're really interested in. Because the idea behind that dynamic minor is to sell yourself as a more interesting candidate later on, right? As well as not to bore yourself while you're going through college. And a lot of you pre-professionals are going to be so focused on law school or med school that you might need a little bit of something that changes it up a bit for you. That might take classes at other campuses, right? So you've got to find those interest points that really sell you, connect you to what you're doing. And I would say letting your family know what you're doing too, so that they'll ask you about that during the holidays, not just, how are you? What was that project you were working on? Because then it keeps the active mindset while you're here as a student. Any questions so far? All right, so delivering your speech, the important thing there is taking the time to really get into your audience and to know who you're speaking to. Know their background. I always, being a semester when I teach ASU, or when I teach a one-on-one class, I'd always start the semester off with having students in the class explain to each other how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that's pretty easy. By show of hands, how many people know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? All right. By show of hands, how many of you would change the way you deliver your knowledge of making a peanut butter sandwich to a culinary chef if you're explaining it to them? Would you feel comfortable explaining it to them, for one? Feel very comfortable? Would you feel comfortable enhancing the skills and using a culinary diction and tone to explain it to them? I don't even know the correct tone, so I'd be a little out of sorts, but I could probably say, end results of peanut butter jelly sandwich. And in fact, I could probably just show them my sandwich, my lunchbox, say, could you make one, but enhance it with more unique flavors? And a culinary chef could probably do that. Whereas, if you're explaining it to maybe a 3 or 4-year-old, you would probably do it a bit differently, right? Or if you were trying to take something that might be a little bit more unique to your own cultural cuisine and explain to someone who wasn't familiar with it, you might have to break it down a little bit more simply. So that's something to know. When you're delivering to your audience, you want to make sure that you know what their background knowledge is so that you keep them engaged, and so that you know what things you can use and sell without having to explain yourself too much, and that will allow your flow to go through a lot smoother and to keep your audience more engaged. And to get forward to those bigger opportunities like research with your professors, if you sound like you know what you're talking about. Okay, so we've tried to condense 3 topics into 1 hour. I know at this point, you've had a lot of talking at you. I hope that you get a chance as you move into writing with a paper to think about how you're going to use this a little bit and what type of papers that you're going to have to do this semester. Does anyone have current writing assignments that they're working on that we can use as an example? There's a list of some things up here, but how many of you have an English class right now? Okay, so what's the first type of paper you have to write in your English class? What's the name of it?
In my class, we're writing an argumentative essay.
Argumentative essay, okay. How many pages does it need to be?
Like 5.
5? How many citations does it need to have?
At least 8.
8?
No, I think it's actually 5 sources.
5 pages, about 5 sources. How many points of view does it have to cover?
Your view, or like what your thesis is, and then like the opposing view. So
Okay.
2.
Has anyone else written an argumentative essay? Okay. What's kind of been the feedback? By like show of hands, how many people did pretty well on it? How many people did so-so? How many people are like, gosh, I really wish I didn't have to do that, I did not do great at it? Okay, that's fair, I've been there too, all right? The thing is that I get the most fun feedback from the professors that I've had was, yeah, you did an okay job selling your side, but you really didn't do the best job selling the other person's side. And selling the other person's side is a big part of an argumentative essay. The more that you can understand where the other person's coming from, the stronger it's going to be. It's a very large part if you went to a graduate program. So the idea there is for you to not get so bombarded with the page number and the number of resources, right? It's really taking the time to draw a map. So this is something that I'm not going to put up here, but you all can do while you're here. So if you want to pull out a piece of paper or flip over something you're taking notes on or use your computer, you didn't bring anything, that's okay. You can kind of follow along and you can always see me later if you want to go through this. But it's kind of creating your thought bubbles that are going to allow you to go through, right, your outline. And as silly as that might sound, maybe you're like completely against outlines, it truly does help, especially when you get like writer's block or you're like procrastinating, right? It's the easiest thing to do. You can usually do it a day or 2 after you've been given the assignment. Very simple, you kind of put the topic there that you're looking at, right? You put your introduction, you put your body, you put your proof, and you put your conclusions. So you have a few areas you're going to fill in. And you know each area is going to be about a page or 2, right? That's usually just going to get you through like, 5 to 8 page, 10 page paper. There's a page or 2 on each area. The thing you need to do next, after just putting those out there, that's just like a few words, right? Is you start looking, you start spending time either on the internet or at the library, and you start looking for any types of articles that are going to relate. And whether you send those articles to yourself through a PDF and print them out, you just gather them. And the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take the time to go through and read and highlight and look for the stuff that you want to kind of prove in each of those paragraphs. So you relate it. You find books and papers that relate to just those paragraphs. And believe it or not, before you know it, you're having your resources done, you have your outline done. And the next thing you're doing is you're creating your citations. And this is before you even wrote the paper. If you do all that and all you have left to do is write your paper, you're going to see, if you did find good citations and notes, that you're going to be able to filter that in. So it's not only your words now, it's the words of those articles, those books, and those resources that are going to be there. They're going to flush it out because the teacher's going to want to see the research that's come before you, the voices that have come before you, the opposing viewpoint. So that's a really important part about when you're writing an essay, is taking the time to do the simplest stuff that involves some legwork, but it gets you out of just sitting at your desk. And then you're coming back and you're adding in pieces. You can work section by section, but it's usually just 5 sections you're working on. It's just sometimes there's a greater length of pages for each of those 5 sections. And that's what we can help you out with, our tutors and coaches can help you out with. So never feel like you have to wait to the last minute. There's a lot of easy stuff you can do for writing a paper before you ever have to write the paper. So I did list some suggestions there if you want to draw the reader's attention, which you can go back to after the presentation. But if you can put a little bit of yourself in there, even if you can't write in first person, but you can pick a topic that interests you, that's the way to do that if you can't write in first person too. All right? And the things here, as you move on, the papers get longer, right? And it's all about your thesis. They want to know what you're trying to sell. So this is a good time to really talk to your friends, talk to your family. What is going to be your stake in the paper? This is another thing that you can do, is you can come in the very beginning when you're doing your paper, before the second even gets going, before you even go looking for the articles, and just work on a thesis. Our tutors are great at that. It's only a couple of sentences. Sometimes it's one great sentence, but it can be a few sentences depending on the style that you need for your class. But it really is, when I was grading papers, the best thing. When you can read a good thesis statement, you have a framing for how you can grade the paper once you know what the person is really talking about. And then you know a good way to give them feedback. So if you ever want feedback from your professors, they need a rough draft that has a good thesis statement, because then they can use that to guide you and really show you. Because otherwise there's too many possibilities. They need to know what you stand behind. So find a way early on in your classes to pick what you want to do in your papers, and then find a good way to lay that out, and then you can shape from there, because if you don't have that, your professors are going to be a little bit at a loss about how to help you. So help them help you. All right. Now this stuff we've kind of covered a little bit about choosing your topic, right? Something that really personally connects to you, something that you can relate to. You don't go for your first paper in college and pick something so far out that you're not going to be able to produce a good paper. Because another important thing, in addition to turning these papers in, is trying to get a good enough grade your first semester to open the door to additional scholarships and opportunities. So that's what I'm saying. During your first semester, play it safe a little bit. Look for the things that you can write about clearly, carefully, that interest you. They're going to show your professors that there's a spark there, because if they see that you're confused, it's going to be a little bit harder, right? They're going to not take you as seriously. So wait that challenge to your next semester or your sophomore year. And we have one person that's a sophomore in here. Would that sound about right to you? I think it was here at this table, sophomore?
Yes.
Yes. So what has been your experience writing so far? Do these things support your experiences?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, something that I did a lot my freshman year, this is like kind of like going off, not off topic, but like it's a beneficial tool, is I went to the writing center.
Okay.
And like they always like told me like what, like they give you those extra tips that you're like going over right now. And they were really good at editing, and I just recommend everyone to go there because.
How did you cover a topic that maybe you didn't know as much about? What was your first step in that?
I mean, like, you just research. Like, I did a lot of research, and I mostly like chose topics that I was interested in, because like whenever you want to learn something new, like you usually choose stuff you're interested in, because it's like grasp your like personal attention. So, but there's also essays I had to write, which I was like, why am I writing about this? I don't care about, like, last year I wrote about Colin Kaepernick. I don't know if you guys know. Football player, 49ers, and I was like, no, it's not my thing. But I mean, I learned a lot and like became more educated on other things.
If you give yourself a little bit of time, you can figure out the stuff, and that can enhance your skill set. I think you mentioned a very important thing. We have a writing center. That's also another resource here on campus, and they can help you get going on what you're looking to do. and allowing yourself the time to find those resources out. Did you use a library or did you use like an online search?
Yeah, I went to the library, and the librarian actually was really helpful, and she told me about all the online like sources that we had access to, like opposing viewpoints is good for argumentative essays. There's also EBOS host. Yeah,
I use that when I was
I use that one a lot.
Database search.
But yeah, and it's nice because like ASU is like pays for that, and a lot of them you need like subscriptions. What's it called?
Yeah,
Subscriptions.
subscriptions.
Yeah.
So you all know the Tempe Library is open like 24/7. You just have to swipe your card in. The other campuses are a library. You all know where it's located here. So you go to the University Center, which is the building across the street that has like your Sun card there and financial aid. You go down to the basement level, library's there. In there, there's also tech support. They can help you with any computer problem you have, right? But they have reduced hours. So if they're not open, you can use the 100 number or you can use the online website to reach out to a librarian, whether it be at our Tempe location or anywhere that's in our library network around the United States or maybe even around the world, depending on the people that are signed into it. And a librarian will help you search whatever you need. It's a great tool to have. I mean, it was there when I was going through college, but it was just kind of getting going, the kind of World Wide Web and using this. So having that access that you can actually send to your librarian, I need to write an argumentative essay today on marijuana and legalizing it. They can start pulling stuff for you. All of a sudden you have a list of like 5 or 6 resources and you didn't have to even ask for a librarian. Trust me, you probably go back and ask your parents or grandparents about that. They had to do that all themselves. They didn't have a librarian pulling that information for them. Use our librarians, they're getting paid to do that. That's why when people take on those jobs as library aides and stuff like that, they're just sitting on a computer doing research all the time for people. Kind of a cool job to do, but they're there, it's completely free, so you're right, it's a great resource. I definitely recommend using that because it will help you with both of these steps right here. It helps you narrowing down your topic as well as gathering your information. And if you have to use citations, sometimes those librarians will even help you get to the citation guide. So it's a great thing to take advantage of. We did talk a little bit about organizing your ideas and creating that kind of web of ideas, right? Do those outlines. It really does help. And if you have an outline after day one when your teacher assigns it, you go in the next day to office hours with it, that's probably going to shock them quite a bit, especially if you're a freshman, right? And you're going in there saying, like, I got this already, what can I do next? And even if you know kind of the answer, that's a great way to meet your teacher and move that conversation forward and you get on kind of their good side, right? Because like it or not, whether you were a nerd in high school or not, we're all nerds now, right? We're all paying to go to school. So embrace your inner academic nerd, right? And utilize that and get to know your teacher, so that's what they're here for too, or they wouldn't have a career as a teacher if they weren't like, you know, super geek, right? Okay, so rewriting and revising, you want to do this early and often. As often as well as your professor or TA is willing to meet with you and go over a draft, come in with something for them to look at. Take serious the notes that they give you, apply them, coming and seeing our writing center or our tutors at TRIO, and getting that help at the first year center, wherever you're going, getting that help so you can go back with a few more details that have changed your paper. But if you go in with no changes, you're wasting your time and that professor's time. They want to see that you have a stake in it, okay? You are consumers of education, you're paying for these classes, but they also have a stake in there trying to get you to advance. And if you're not advancing, it's a very difficult conversation to have. I know sometimes it's hard to share, but you have met a few people here today, or maybe you're with your friend. But that's okay. You want to turn to that person and you're willing to share it. Even if they're in your class, so they can read stuff. They'll catch the smallest little things that you may not catch because you're rereading with your own language in your own head. So I'm going to ask, before we end, to turn to the person, whether it be the same person you met earlier or a new person, and just exchange information. Just exchange your name and your email address. That way you have one other person that you can possibly send a paper to. They can take a look. They can say no. That's okay. But you have another resource. I'm going to give you a minute to do that if you haven't already done that, okay?